have no idea what the forum for questions is here tonight. I have no idea whether or not the candidates even want to answer the questions, but let's get started nonetheless. I think what we should do is give all the candidates a moment to introduce themselves and tell us why they think they would be best to lead the city. And let's start with a candidate who, within 10 years of the first Asian elected official in the city, became the first citywide Asian elected official when he was elected public advocate in 2009. He was elected controller. He just thought he was the public advocate. And his tireless efforts expanded from Queens to the entire city. He is dynamic, articulate, receptive, courageous, and outspoken. Please welcome the Controller of the City of New York, John Liu.
Before the floor to you, please go on. And I thank him for his introduction, and especially the whole first Asian thing. When I was elected to the city council, when I was elected to controller, they always make a big deal out of the first Asian thing. It's a new thing, but quite honestly, it was never anything new for me, because I've been Asian my whole life. But it's great to join some of my rivals here, and I think that I give them a lot of credit for being at this forum, because this is a very important forum. And this is a forum that's put together, the first one thus far this year, and there have been numerous forums. I think we had a dozen last week alone. But this is the first one that's been put together by the future leadership of our city, the young people who are in New York City. And the kinds of issues are important to everybody in this city. But when you're a young person, when you're trying to start out, you're trying to make your mark, I think the issues are that much more pronounced. And while not all the young people necessarily get involved, the ones that do truly make an impact. So I'm here to share as many of my views as possible with all of you. And at the end of the day, you decide who you're going to vote for, who you're going to support, or maybe even campaign for. But this discussion has to take place, and I'm so happy to be here with all of you. Thank you so much.
Now we are going to hear from a person who was first elected to the City Council in 1982. He, at that time, representing Staten Island, they didn't believe in things like women's rights, civil rights, manned space flights to the moon. But nonetheless, as a Democrat in Staten Island, he got a lot done in the areas of economic development, healthcare, and expanding education for those who are in special education. He was sought after many times to run for the state senate and state assembly by his colleagues in Albany, but stayed in his district in the city council, and then inevitably ran for mayor in 1997. He is tireless in his effort. He has always remained civic-minded, even when he went into the private sector for a while. And he comes back for a second run at the same position some years later. He's wiser. Well, if he's running, he's got to be wiser. He is Sal Albanese. Welcome, Sal Albanese.
Thank you, Governor. I'm wiser, but I have less hair. It's great to be here. My name is Sal Albanese. I'm running for mayor, and I'm the only candidate in this race who has a record of independence and is not a career politician. And I'm not accepting money from lobbyists or developers. I want to put people in charge of City Hall. I'm running for mayor because I want to offer the same opportunities to future generations of New Yorkers that I had growing up in the city, and I feel that the political system is letting them slip away. I have a number of issues I want to discuss with you tonight, from education to job creation to housing and public safety. And I look forward to your questions. But in order to accomplish making this city a better place for all of us. We need a political system that works for its citizens. Right now, we have an out-of-touch political class that spends more time at cocktail parties than they do listening to their constituents. I want to be a different kind of mayor. I want to be able to make decisions on the merits. I want to tell the truth, even if it's politically risky. And I want to give regular people a voice in City Hall. So with your help and your votes, we can build a better city. Thank you. I look forward to the questions.
Thank you very much, Sal Albanese. Our next candidate was first elected to the New York City Council representing the great borough of Brooklyn in 2001. 8 years later, he was elected citywide as the public advocate of the city of New York. I confused him with John Luke because they look so much alike to me. But prior to his public service, he was one of the outstanding organizers on political issues in the country, working with Union SEIU and 1199. He organized some of the great events involving protests of apartheid conditions in South Africa, protests of... You jerk that. Again, you don't have to. He also was part of the movement to pass the first hate crimes bill in New York State, and also the Sexual Orientation Non-Discrimination Act of 2002. So he has been active and working for, and when you know him, he knows that maybe his greatest attribute is caring about those who don't have a voice, but they've always had his voice. Here's the public advocate of the city of New York, Bill de Blasio.
Governor, thank you so much for being here. I have to tell you, it's true, John Lou and I are mistaken all the time. I've gotten into the habit now of just signing my signature, John Lou, because it happens so often. It's much easier.
Be careful there, be careful.
I started doing it, and then I got a call from some federal authorities.
That's right.
Oh, don't worry, we're just getting warmed up here.
But Governor, first of all, you know, I don't want people to forget. When Governor Patterson came into office, this was not a fun and easy circumstance for him to come into a state that was in crisis. And one of the things he did, which I will never forget, is right away said to the people of the state, here's what we're dealing with. And he leveled with people in an extraordinarily honest way. And I think won lasting respect just for that very act of honesty right off the bat. He did a lot of good as governor. Can we please give a round of applause?
I'd like to announce an endorsement. Oh.
I didn't know that's all it took. But look, I just would say this at the outset. I'm really happy that this forum is happening. I was really troubled by Michael Bloomberg's speech yesterday, where he acted like any of us who questioned stop and frisk, who questioned the fact that civil liberties are being violated and constitutional standards are being violated, that somehow we don't care about safety. Well, you know, I've seen those attempts to divide us before. I don't accept them. Every single human being in this room cares about safety. But because you're Americans, you believe safety and civil liberties can go together and must go together. I just want to say, and I'll finish with this, I'm not going to let Mayor Bloomberg's fear-mongering get to me. I'm going to stand up and say we need to deeply reform what we're doing. We can't have our young people who are innocent, who are law-abiding, treated like suspects on a regular basis. That will not take us forward.
That's it? You know, I don't mind being the puppet. It's just when they let the strings show that's served the constituents of Kings County as the deputy borough president to Borough President Golden back in the 80s. In the 90s, he became a rather prominent investment banker. And in 2001, he was elected controller of the city of New York. During his time as controller, he compiled the best minority and women's business record of any sitting elected official, city or state, to this date. And of the races that he ran, it's probably most interesting, the race he didn't run, when he chose to observe the spirit of the public edict in 2009 and did not seek a third term as controller. He ran rather as mayor, and he comes back to as mayor again, the Honorable Bill Thompson.
It's a pleasure to be here as part of David Patterson's Def Comedy Jam this evening. It is always an honor to be in any room with David Patterson. He is a great public servant. He is somebody who I've been proud to call friend for longer. As a matter of fact, it's really starting to get on my nerves. His hair hasn't changed like mine has. He has more hair than I have, and we have known each other that long. We were lucky to have him as a state senator. He's the one who helped to bring the majority back to the New York State Senate for the Democrats. And as governor, a number of the things that we enjoy now, a number of the things that were done to move us forward as a state, David Patterson started. So it is always a pleasure to see Governor Patterson. It is great to be here this evening with all of you. Let me start out first. Matali, thank you for the work that you did. Ben, thank you. I know this was not easy to get all of us out this evening. This is a super evening. And this discussion tonight about the future of New York City. This is 2013, New York City at a crossroads. What direction are we going to go in? You're going to help to shape that future. You're going to help to decide what path we go down. We continue to go down the path that we have been going down for the last 12 years. Some would say 20. Because if you go back and look at Rudy Giuliani also, and 12 years, 4 years too long of Mike Bloomberg, we are going down the wrong path. If we don't change the direction that we're going in, there are a lot of us who aren't going to be here 4 years from now. There are a number of us who definitely won't be here 8 years from now. We have an education system that needs to be reformed. We have the necessity to create jobs, but jobs that the people in the city of New York can get, the jobs that you can get. We need to build new housing, because one of the things that you continue to face, and that's not just you, it's all New Yorkers, is affordable housing, low, moderate, and middle income housing, because if we don't change that, if we don't build it, we're not going to be able to afford to live in this city. This is 2013. This is the year, as I said to people, electing a president is important. And we re-elected Barack Obama last year. But 2013, the mayor of the city of New York has more impact on your daily lives when it comes to safety, when it comes to housing, when it comes to transportation, when it comes to education, than the President of the United States. So, I'm going to sound magnanimous for a second. No matter who you support, and sure, I hope it's me, but no matter who you support this year, get involved and let us make sure that we don't have 4 more years of what we've had for the last 12. Let us make sure we go to the
It has come to my attention that you have expressed an interest in also moderating tonight's. And that's a beautiful thing. What I would propose, if I may, is that we can sort of do this together. And there are people who have been selected to ask questions, and I can assist you with leading that in. And I would love if you could also assist with follow-up questions to make sure that we keep the candidates on task. Is that okay? Yes.
You know, I think I'll just go go along with this, but you ever feel like you're sliding down a banister? It turns into a razor blade? Sure, go right ahead.
All right, excellent. It's great that we're all being very humorous tonight.
The relationship between the police and the community have degraded so far that I believe some of these tactics, specifically stop and frisk, have made communities less safe, and that the rhetoric that the mayor and the police commissioner have espoused are just dead wrong. I don't think stop and frisk works. I don't think it continues to drive down crime. Crime may be going down in spite of widespread stop and frisk. Stop and frisk is something that I'm surprised I'm the only candidate running for mayor who says very clearly that stop and frisk must be abolished here in the city. When Mayor Bloomberg was delivering his tirade yesterday, it was somewhat shocking to hear him accuse other people of racial bias when in fact he refuses to acknowledge that stop and frisk is the biggest form of racial profiling anywhere here in this country. And it's happening right in our city. What we need to do is get rid of stop and frisk. You know, just think of how much resource it takes. You spread your resources far and wide and thin, stopping almost 700,000 people a year. Almost all of them have done nothing wrong. Why don't you focus the police resources on bad people? Use strategies like focused deterrence, where you're working closely hand in hand with community leaders and members, and identifying the hot spots so that the police can really go after criminals and suspects.
Well said, Controller Lou. Let's hear from...
As opposed to assuming everybody's bad. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Let's hear from former Controller Bill Thompson.
The first thing we need to do is have a mayor who understands that stop and frisk, the way it is being used, is wrong, that it's being misused and abused, and we have a new police commissioner for the city of New York. That's a beginning. That's a strong beginning. Moving to a new, focusing on training, making sure our officers are representative of the communities that they represent, making sure that we enter a new era of community policing. People on the ground, people in the neighborhoods, officers relating to the neighborhoods that they're working. That's been gone for years. Officers are in cars riding around. We need them on the streets, working with community residents, driving crime down. That's ways to improve the relationship between police and communities. Things like, John mentioned focused deterrence. High point strategy, which is another one that has been used in other places around the country to bring younger people and who have drug problems, who are selling drugs, together with community, together with the police, to bring that down also. There are a number of things that we can do to drive that, to make change in the city of New York. But the first thing we need is a mayor who understands that the way stop and frisk is being used is unconstitutional, that we use it correctly, that we bring it down, but also that we have a new police commissioner who will lead this city in a new direction. And one other thing, we need to remember, the police commissioner works for the mayor. The police commissioner works for the mayor. The police commissioner is not an independent, free agent. It should follow the direction that the mayor says. That's the type of mayor I want to be, to set a direction, to say to my commissioner, you're going to work with communities. And our police department is, again, going to make...
Thanks very much, Controller Thompson. Let's go to former Councilman Sal Albanese.
Mrs. Bell, thank you for being here, and thank you for your question. We live in the United States of America. No one should be stopped in violation of the Constitution. And it's clear that the program presently applied is creating tension between the communities and the police. We have to focus on quality, not quantity, and I have a three-pronged approach for addressing it. One is, I want to make sure that every single officer in the city, recruits and the people that are already on the job, know what the proper approach is when you stop someone. What is the constitutional methodology you have to apply? Extensive training is number one. Number two, I want to hire 3,800 more officers, assign them to patrol and do what's been suggested by some of my colleagues. We need to have that interaction between the police and the community so they know each other and build trust. And that's been eroded over the last couple of years. And trust is important for the police and the community. And thirdly, I think we have to reform our drug laws and stop criminalizing so many of our young people.